Hello everyone, my name is Alex, and you are on the Classic Cars Roast channel. Oh, this one. Frankly, I'm not even sure where to begin with the sheer number of problems here, but try I must, shall we? Welcome to the world of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am, a car that tries desperately to cling to the glory days of American muscle while stumbling through the malaise era like a drunkard at a wedding. You see, the Grand Am was supposed to be a sporty alternative, but by the time this model rolled off the line, Pontiac was already in a downward spiral, trying to figure out how to stay relevant in an era that had turned its back on high-compression V8s. Let's talk about the market situation. These days, the big iron market is really heating up, and oddly enough, even this car, which once would have been tossed aside like yesterday's leftovers, is now garnering attention. Restored models are fetching between $30,000 to $50,000 at auction. Yes, you heard that right. 30 to 50 grand for a car that once had a compression ratio of 7.6 to 1 and a pathetic 190 horsepower. What a world we live in. And if you happen to stumble upon a pristine example with absurdly low mileage, like a Grand Am that's only traveled 97 miles, you could expect to see auction prices skyrocket to a ridiculous $140,000. Insane, right? But it's all about originality. Remember, it's only original once. Now, first impressions? The exterior has its quirks, like that slotted grille design divided by vertical bars that just screams, "I'm trying too hard." And those energy-absorbing bumpers, mandated for safety, make the whole package look like it's been on a diet of bad decisions. Inside, the dashboard layout has that engine-turned aluminum dash insert that might impress some, but honestly, it feels more like an afterthought than a centerpiece. And don't even get me started on the seats. Vinyl bucket seats with optional fabric inserts. What is this, a budget motel? But here's where it gets even more interesting. This is a car that came with either a 400 cubic inch V8 or the slightly more powerful 455 cubic inch V8. Yet by the time you get to those engine numbers, you realize that having 250 horsepower is still a far cry from what muscle cars used to deliver. This is a far cry from the era when V8s were kings, and now we're left with the remnants of a once great lineage. So what do you think? Is this car worth the hype? The sheer absurdity of its market prices makes me scratch my head in disbelief. Would I buy this car? Hell no. But you might want to keep an eye on it if you're into that brutal charm. A charm that's hard to find, but even harder to justify. All right, folks, grab your popcorn because it's time to dive into the creation story of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am, a car that embodies the malaise era like a bad hangover. By the time this beast hit the streets, the golden age of muscle cars was gasping for air, barely hanging on for dear life. 1970 was the last great year for high-compression V8s, and everything that followed was a sad, pathetic shadow of its former self. The Grand Am made its debut when the industry was scrambling to comply with government regulations and consumer demands for fuel efficiency. Trust me, this is not the backdrop you want for a performance-oriented vehicle. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what Pontiac was thinking. The Grand Am was marketed as a sportier option, a kind of last hurrah for enthusiasts who still wanted a taste of power. But they were already cutting corners. It was clear the engineers were playing a game of compromise. Instead of the expected robust V8 engines, we were handed a watered-down version with a 7.6 to 1 compression ratio. That's right, a number that screams mediocrity. The engines offered were a far cry from the roaring beasts of the previous decade. You could get a 400 cubic inch V8 that made a pathetic 190 horsepower SAE net, or if you were feeling frisky, the slightly better 455 cubic inch V8 that mustered a laughable 250 horsepower. That's not a muscle car, folks. That's a sad little puppy in a world full of lions. The design department wasn't doing much better either. They had to fit the mandatory energy-absorbing bumpers that were all the rage following new safety regulations. Sure, it was a noble idea, but the execution was about as graceful as a hippo on roller skates. The inflatable Endura front bumper, a gimmick that had more to do with safety compliance than aesthetic appeal. The styling had its quirks, sure, but it was clear they were aiming for luxury instead of performance. The interior featured what they called Euro-style luxury components, but let's be real. Nobody was buying a Pontiac to feel like they were in a fancy European car. And the handling? It used to be better. Cars from the mid-60s to early 70s could carve a corner like a hot knife through butter. But here we are in 1973, and the Grand Am feels like it's trying to dance with two left feet. So what do you think? A car that carries the weight of an entire era on its shoulders and still manages to look like it's struggling in a world that moved on? The Grand Am is a tribute to the past's glory, while simultaneously being a harbinger of what was to come. A sad decline in American automotive performance. All right, folks, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the exterior of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am. Now, right off the bat, you've got to appreciate the colors this beast rolled out in. You've got options like cameo white, sterling silver, buccaneer red, regatta blue, and the eye-catching goldenrod yellow. Sounds vibrant, right? But here's the kicker. These colors can't hide the fact that the design is stuck in the malaise era, where everything is starting to look a bit dull and uninspired. The last great year for high-compression V8s was 1970, and you can feel that loss in the air, even in the paint. Now let's talk about those body lines. You've got a slotted grille design divided by vertical bars that scream, "I'm trying too hard to be sporty." It's like Pontiac was desperately clinging to its performance roots while the entire industry was drowning in mediocrity. The body shape? It's not exactly cutting edge. The Grand Am is a big car, and it wears its bulk like a badge of honor, but the lines are soft, rounded, and lacking the aggression you'd expect from a name that was once synonymous with muscle. And those bumpers? Don't even get me started. Energy-absorbing bumpers with impact strips were a requirement starting in 1973, and while they were a necessary safety feature, they completely ruined the aesthetic. Instead of the sleek chrome or the tough look of earlier models, you're left with these bulky monstrosities that make the car look like it's wearing a suit 2 sizes too big. Then we have the inflatable Endura front bumper, which is supposed to withstand minor impacts without damage. Kudos for innovation, but it just adds another layer of absurdity. This isn't a space-age rocket, it's a car, and I want it to look like one. The excess weight and clunky design just scream compromise. So, what's the verdict on the exterior? It's a mixed bag of decent color options wrapped up in an uninspired design that feels far removed from the glory days of muscle cars. For me, a car should evoke passion and excitement. This one? It's more like a polite nod to a bygone era, but with all the excitement of a wet sponge. If you're looking for something with real character, this might not be the ride for you. But hey, if you're into nostalgia and don't mind a car that's more about its charm than its performance, maybe give it a second look. Just don't expect to turn any heads because those body lines won't do it for you. All right, folks, we've reached the interior of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am, and oh boy, it's a mixed bag of jaw-dropping decisions and questionable compromises. First up, let's talk about the dashboard. The Grand Am comes with an engine-turned aluminum dash insert, which is supposed to scream sophistication. But honestly, it feels like Pontiac was trying to appeal to a market that was rapidly losing interest in anything that resembled true performance. Those round gauges? They might look cool on paper, but the centrally located tachometer is more of a gimmick than a necessity, especially when you're cranking out a pathetic 190 horsepower. What do you think? Would you trust a tachometer when you know you're not going anywhere fast? Now, let's address the smell. You know the scent of classic cars, leather, metal, maybe a hint of gasoline. The Grand Am, however, has this overwhelming Morocide vinyl smell. It's like they took a can of cheap plastic and bottled it up. And don't even get me started on the seating. Those vinyl bucket seats? Sure, they look like they're trying to channel some sporty vibe, but the comfort level is more akin to sitting on a park bench than cruising in style. It's a long way from the plush interiors of the muscle cars from the mid-60s. My biggest issue has always been how they sacrificed comfort for aesthetics. Then there's the steering wheel. A 3-spoke sport steering wheel? What were they thinking? It feels more like a toy than something you'd want to grip while driving. And if you're looking for luxury features, you might as well forget it. The Grand Am pioneered Euro-style softer ride tuning and quieter interiors, but it's like they forgot that we actually wanted something to drive, not float around in an overstuffed sofa. And let's not gloss over the console, which has an integrated shifter. While it's nice to have storage, the execution feels cheap and flimsy. You can almost hear the rattling as you shift gears. It's a classic case of a company trying to cut corners while pretending they're offering luxury. So, here's the deal. If you're looking for an interior that screams classic car with a hint of nostalgia, you might be disappointed. The Grand Am feels like it was trying to keep up with an era that was already slipping away. For me, a poorly executed interior design is a huge red flag. It's hard to appreciate the car's brutal charm when you feel like you're surrounded by mediocrity. If I'm going to invest in a classic, I want something that delivers more than just a flashy name. What about you? Would you put up with this interior? All right, folks, let's tackle the beast under the hood of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am. We're diving straight into the engine, and believe me, this is where the real problems start. Now, the Grand Am offered a couple of engine options, but let's not kid ourselves. This was during the malaise era, a time when power was being suffocated by regulations and poor engineering decisions. The most notable engine option for the Grand Am was the 400 cubic inch displacement V8. But hold on to your hats. This powerhouse cranked out a pathetic 190 horsepower. Yes, you heard that right. 190. That's a disgraceful drop from the glory days of the muscle car era, and it's a staggering reminder that 1970 was the last great year for high-compression V8s. If you were lucky enough to step up to the 455 cubic inch V8, you'd be looking at a slightly more respectable 250 horsepower. But let's be clear, this isn't exactly a powerhouse by any means. Both engines are paired with torque figures that might make a diesel engine blush. 325 pound-feet for the 400 and 370 pound-feet for the 455. With those numbers, you'd think you could get a bit of a kick in the pants, but that's where you'd be sorely mistaken. The performance figures are downright embarrassing. 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 9.5 seconds. I mean, my grandma's minivan could probably do that with a full load of groceries. And what's even more ridiculous, the Grand Am used a Chevrolet engine in its Canadian-built models. Can you imagine that? A Pontiac with a Chevy heart. It's like wearing a Ford t-shirt while driving a Dodge. This is the kind of compromise that makes you question everything about the brand's integrity. The engineering decisions behind these engines are just laughable, with durability issues on the timing chain and the 455 and steering box leaks to boot. Now, I can't let this conversation slip by without mentioning the transmission. The Grand Am came equipped with the Turbo Hydromatic 400, and let me tell you, this is the best automatic transmission ever built. It's tough as nails and has been the gold standard in the industry. You can't compare it to the Ford C6 or the weaker THM 200. If you're looking for reliability and performance, the Turbo Hydromatic 400 is the only way to go. So, what's the bottom line here? The engine options for the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am are a sad reflection of an era gone by. With dismal power figures and questionable engineering, I wouldn't touch this car with a 10-foot pole unless it came with a full restoration plan. The Grand Am might have its charm, but under the hood, it's a whole different story. Now we come to the sacred cow of automotive engineering, the transmission. The 3-speed automatic transmission in the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am is none other than the Turbo Hydromatic 400. Let me be clear, folks, this is the best automatic transmission ever built. Period. It's robust, reliable, and smooth, unlike the pathetic Ford C6 or the feeble THM 200 that other manufacturers tried to shove down your throat. When you're behind the wheel of a Grand Am, you can feel the power transfer seamlessly as you stomp on the accelerator. It's an experience that elevates the entire driving sensation. But hey, don't get too excited. There's a catch here, and it's a big one. The rear axle ratios available, 2.73 to 1 and 3.08 to 1, are a mixed bag. Sure, you can get a decent launch with that 3.08 rear axle, but don't expect to blow anyone's doors off at the stoplight. With a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of approximately 9.5 seconds, you'll be left in the dust by even a modern grocery getter. This is a car that was born in the malaise era, where performance took a back seat to comfort, and it shows. The Grand Am was designed to cruise, not conquer. Now, let's talk about the mechanics in general. The Grand Am was a part of Pontiac's effort to pivot from the muscle car era into something more genteel. And boy, did they miss the mark. While the Turbo Hydromatic 400 is a masterpiece, the rest of the mechanicals leave much to be desired. The steering box is notorious for leakage, and the timing chain durability in that big 455 cubic inch engine. Don't even get me started. If you're looking at a Grand Am, you better check those common rust spots: rear quarters, trunk floor, door bottoms. These are the telltale signs of a car that's seen better days. All of this combines to create a car that has a certain character. It's a brutal charm, an unapologetic character that says, "I'm not what I used to be, but I still have some fight left in me." But for me, the lack of precision, the mediocre handling, and the overall feeling that you're driving a relic from a bygone era is a disqualifying element. It's hard to shake off the feeling that this is just one more example of the decline of American muscle. Would I put my cash down for this? Not a chance. The transmission is great, but the rest? Pretty dreadful. Now, let's dive into the suspension, brakes, and handling feel of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am, which, quite frankly, is a disaster waiting to happen. If you thought the engine was bad, wait until you get a load of how this car negotiates corners, and I'm not talking about gracefully gliding through them. No, this is more like a lumbering whale trying to pull off a ballet dance. The front suspension setup features a classic coil spring arrangement with a lower control arm. Sounds fancy, right? Well, it's not. Instead of providing the stability and responsiveness you'd expect from a muscle car, it feels like you're wrestling a bull. The rear is even worse, with a leaf spring setup that's about as outdated as disco music. You want a smooth ride? Forget it. You'll feel every bump, every pothole, and every little imperfection on the road like it's your personal nemesis. And speaking of personal nemesis, let's talk about the brakes. The Grand Am was equipped with front disc brakes and rear drum brakes, a combination that might have been acceptable in the late 60s. In 1973? Pathetic. The stopping power is about as reliable as a politician's promise. You're not getting any confidence from those brakes, and if you're a fan of your own life, you'll want to keep that distance from the car in front of you. Do you remember the handling of cars from the mid-60s to early 70s? They used to handle beautifully, but this? It feels like Pontiac took a giant step backward. You'd be better off with a shopping cart for agility. The steering is vague, almost as if the car is trying to tell you, "Hey, I'm just here for the ride, not for precision." And don't even get me started on the body roll. This car leans like a drunk at a bar. What about the driving experience? Well, if you enjoy the sensation of being tossed around like a rag doll, then you'll be in heaven. But for me, a car should inspire confidence, not dread. If you want to take a corner, good luck. You'll need all the luck in the world to avoid ending up in the ditch. In summary, the suspension might be old school, but it sure isn't charming. The brakes are a reminder of how far we've come in automotive technology. And the handling? Well, it's a sad reflection of the malaise era, where performance took a backseat to comfort and safety regulations. If I had to pick one disqualifying element, it would be the handling. I wouldn't buy this car if it came with a free set of tires. When it comes to the reliability of the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am, you might want to brace yourself. This beauty, with its striking design, may have captured the hearts of many, but let's not kid ourselves. It's not exactly a paragon of dependability. The common rust spots are a glaring issue, particularly in the rear quarters, trunk floor, and door bottoms. If you're considering one of these cars, you better be prepared to play detective because rust can hide in the most unexpected places. And don't even get me started on the electrical issues. Faulty ignition modules and problems with the rear window defroster could leave you stranded, cursing the day you laid eyes on this car. Now, the mechanical weak points add another layer of complexity to the reliability equation. The timing chain durability in the 455 cubic inch engine has been known to be less than stellar, and steering box leakage can make your driving experience feel more like steering a boat than a car. So, if you're looking for a dependable daily driver, good luck with that. Now let's talk about the verdict. For collectors, the Grand Am does have its appeal, especially due to its rarity and unique styling. But let's be real, only the most dedicated enthusiasts are going to overlook its myriad flaws. If you can find one that's been meticulously cared for and is rust-free, You might just snag a piece of classic American iron that holds a certain brutal charm. But remember, it's only original once, and that's what makes these cars so desirable at auction. Prices for these beasts can range anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, depending on their condition and originality. It's a shocking reality, especially when you consider that many of these cars were once seen as disposable. So, would I spend my hard-earned cash on one? If I found a pristine example that still had that unapologetic character and a solid history, maybe, just maybe, I'd consider it. In conclusion, the 1973 Pontiac Grand Am might be a nostalgic reminder of a bygone era, but it's not without its challenges. If you're up for the task of restoring a classic with a hooligan streak, then by all means, dive right in. But if you're looking for a reliable classic that won't leave you stranded on the side of the road, this might not be your best bet. So, are you willing to take the plunge into classic car ownership with all its quirks and pitfalls? If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a like. Leave your comments and impressions. Your opinion is very important to me. Until next time.